You have these animations, Tom and Jerry, Boondocks, Droopy. How do these actors find the voices for these characters? Welcome to Inside Plug, the podcast where independent creators and entrepreneurs connect and inspire. I'm your host, Devon Jones. Today on our show, we have voiceover actor Adam Bullock. Adam, welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting me on. It's a pleasure.
Glad to have you here. This season you are our first voiceover actor, and I'm
Oh,
always in.
oh my gosh. You're so privileged.
Yes, and I am always inspired by voiceover actors. I grew up myself watching animation. I love animation, and you will have some actors who play multiple voices for animations, and I'm just blown away how they can, dig deep into find those voices. But before we get into your voiceover
Sure.
acting projects, let's talk about you as a voiceover actor. When did you decide that voiceover acting was something that you wanted to pursue?
Well, I mean, that's a long story, but I'll do my best to try and to summarize it. Yeah, so like for me, I mean, if I really want to go backwards in it, I've been involved in so many different types of creative fields over the years, from my younger days up to now. Like for example, like I have a background in doing puppetry. I've worked in the haunted house scene. I've worked at Renaissance festivals. I've done live theater. You name it, and all those experiences led me to what I'm doing right now in voiceovers. Because it's a foundational thing that you have to have other experiences to be good at one other thing. And for me, before I even discovered what voiceover was, I just always had a fascination with, characters of any sorts, whether it was the Muppets, whether it was like the shows on Cartoon Network or Disney or Nickelodeon. I just always fell in love with those characters, just like we all did as fans. And the overall joy of it just kept growing as the years went along. And then eventually when I got old enough, I started wanting to get involved in creative things like those things like I said, like puppetry and all that, because that helped play into my skill sets as a voice actor. Now, when it came to just discovering what voice acting was, if we, turn back the clock of time, when it comes to actual media, I remember in the early days, DVDs started coming out. And with every DVD that came out, or most DVDs that came out, they had behind the scenes features of those movies or TV shows that showed you how they make it happen. It's like pre-YouTube almost. And I just remember, watching either one or several different DVDs of all these shows or TV movies. And I always clicked on the feature. It said something like behind the voices. I was like, what's that? And so when I watched these little mini video clips or whatever they did for the DVD, I saw these men and women in a recording studio performing in something like what you're kind of seeing here in a vocal booth or in a recording studio. And they're doing these characters that I had just watched on TV. And I was just like, that's a job. That's how they did it. And I just got more invested into like researching, see what other people did. And this is like when I was around 16, 17, around my high school days. That's when I really wanted to get into it because of, family members and friends that had suggested you should really get into this. And so, after starting doing some research, practicing on my own, I started reaching out to other voice actors that were here local and where I live at in Arizona. And, they gave me great advice, but maybe not the advice I think I needed at that moment. Which it was kind of discouraging, because I also say this, one of the top one of the top skill sets I would say this, a voice actor, I should say, needs in order to be a great voice actor. And something I wish these voice actors had told me back then was you have to be a good actor. If you don't know how to act, you cannot do voice acting. As easy as it looks, you have to know how to act. And I wish I got more acting experience back then. But, life happens. And so, I didn't let it totally dishearten me that they were giving me like the wrong advice back then. I still tried pursuing it. But it wasn't until like after a couple little setbacks and just self-disappointments and anxiety and all that other fun stuff that kids go through at that time, I kind of stopped pursuing it for such a long time. But then about 10 years later, I actually started around, was it around 2012 or so, I started practicing Buddhism. I practice one of many forms of Buddhism. My form of Buddhism I practice is Nichiren Buddhism. That's another talk for another time. But in my Buddhist practice in inner self-reflection, as we chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, which allows you to become happy from the inside out and not depending on anything else. I was really, praying and chanting for, okay, what makes me happy in life? And then when I did my Buddhist practice and I did some brainstorming, lo and behold, I discovered creativity was my thing that really made me happy. And then I was like, okay, let me still figure out, okay, well, I did, all these creative things in the past, but which one of those is a viable business today or career? And again, long story in bullet points. I then discovered, well, I tried voice acting once, so maybe I should get into that again. I also discovered I like teaching, but then as I kept on, reflecting and brainstorming, I was like, well, you know what? I can still be a teacher, within my creativity. And I can still do voice acting, or I can just do both together. And I'll say, like, since 2021, I've actually been a beginner's voiceover coach for people that are wanting to get into the business. So I help them that way. So that's achieving one of the things that I had, prayed and wanted to manifest. But then two, I then obviously started doing my journey of voice acting. So, with that, I'm not going to like blather on because then there was other talking points that are related, but I just started getting into, back in 2016 when I got started finally again, I just got back into training, coaching, and really getting the insight knowledge that I needed in order to make this a career. Because it can be a great career, but it takes a long time to develop. And also, too, it takes a long time to make it a full-time business. But that's it's a long explanation how I got into it, but that's like the nitty gritty of like a summarized version of why I'm a voice actor.
I love it. I love it. Thanks for sharing that. I do have a question about that. You mentioned how you wasn't told that acting helps bring out the voices in the characters. Now, could you elaborate a little bit more about that? Because when you're doing a voiceover acting, we don't physically see you. So what techniques will you need to learn as an actor to become a better voiceover actor?
Well, there are many answers to that. But when it comes to acting, many people get into voiceover work from different areas of creativity. Some people, maybe they did radio for like 20 years of their life or whatever. And then they're like, you know what? I want to transition over to doing, commercials or whatever. And that's how they get into it. Some people, they come directly from live theater, similar sort of to me. And then we have to then get coaching on how to transform our live acting to in a vocal booth or just by ourselves. But as far as like getting acting experience, there's so many different ways to get it. Like I said, my experiences come from doing like live theater of different kinds. Comes from, just having a mind of just, it comes from a creative mindset, just practicing on my own, creating on my own, observing what other people are doing, and then doing my own thing. But it just takes time. It takes practice, it takes an investment. Like I said, it took me 10, 15 years to really get into a career that I wanted to dedicate time to. But if I didn't have those experiences that helped me with my creativity and my creative mindset, then I wouldn't be a great actor. Because acting is reacting. Because it's like I always say when I talk about voiceover to other people, it's like, for example, like if the sentence is, "Can you please stop that?" How many ways can you say that, or how many ways can you emotionally say that? You could be like, "Please stop that," or you could be like, "Please stop it," or "Please stop it." Like there's only a couple ways. And then obviously, what a lot of people love about voice actor is character work. It's still the same thing. Even though you are changing your persona, you still have to change it. Please stop it. Don't. Oh. You have to change it somehow, because if you don't change it, you'll be, I know it's strange. I know. You still have to have the emotional side, because acting is about your emotions, right? So what does angry look like when you perform it? What does sad look like? What does confused? What does bewildered? All these different types of emotions and reactions. How can you make that believable? And one of the top ways you can make that believable is having, in those acting experiences, like maybe getting one-on-one coaching or doing group classes with people. Maybe you're, like, say, you're acting in plays or musicals, or maybe you are creating content for, online, which can help. But the thing about online content is that it's a great medium, and I think it helps everybody stay creative. I still do it, but a lot of people, when it comes to getting to voice acting, I should say, a lot of people online are only focusing on a couple things. First off is they're doing voice impressions. Voice impressions is a great way to develop your creativity, to get maybe into the mindset of a character, but that doesn't guarantee you work. Unless you're actually wanting to be like a full-time content creator, then yeah, over time you probably can make money from just doing impressions only. But if you're expecting to get to be the next, I don't know, SpongeBob SquarePants on Nickelodeon, that role's already been taken. Tom Kenny already took that role almost 30 years ago. What can you do different? We don't need another SpongeBob. We don't need another Deadpool. Whatever other voice impression that's out there people like to do something different. And one of the things that a lot of voice actors have been doing a long time will say when it comes to impressions is that, yeah, the role's already been taken, but can you take that impression, even if it's really bad, can you make that an original voice? And a lot of people have made really bad impressions into original voices, but that's logistically the only way you can do impressions as like to get great characters. But again, going back, if what you're saying doesn't sound believable, no one's going to want you. No one's going to hire you for that role. But I can elaborate more depth, but you go.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I love that. I love that. Yeah, if it's not believable, then no one's gonna buy into it. Yeah, find that voice. That I love that, and I love that you share different versions of how to say these lines whenever you're given lines to say. It's several ways to get the voices out there. All right, so then now let's dive in a little bit into the project that you've been working on. So it's called Garbage Boy and Trash Can. How did you come across that project, and how was that experience for you?
Sure. So to go more in depth for your listeners and those who are watching on video this season, it's actually the full title of the show. It's actually a pilot animation series for Cartoon Network Africa, because even though Cartoon Network isn't producing a lot of new shows lately, because Warner Brothers has kind of nixed them out, there's many different markets for Cartoon Network. In this case, the one Garbage Boy and Trash Can came out of Lagos, Nigeria, from this animator named Ridwan Mashoud, who created Garbage Boy and Trash Can, which basically is a show about a little boy who thinks he has superpowers, and he tries to save his town, but every time he tries to, he ends up needing a little bit more help, and the person that helps him the most is his robotic sidekick, which is a trash can. And that one is kind of like that story of that whole show is actually based on the creator's personal life, where basically when he was a little kid in Lagos, Nigeria, in school, he would always be bullied. And the only way he had like any kind of safety or any kind of protection was either hiding inside the school's trash can or actually hiding behind it. And that was the only way he got through it. So fast forward, years later, he then learned animation and started creating his own shows. And lo and behold, he wrote this story about this little boy. But the Garbage Boy and Trash Can, like I got to, but with Garbage Boy and Trash Can, I got that experience from just networking with people online. So like back in like February of 2018, I started marketing and networking out to different animation groups on Facebook. And of all the people that responded to my post, where I basically asked, like, hey, can I do any free work for you? I want to build, some samples and build a portfolio of stuff I can do so I can get more work. And I think about 6 or 8 people actually commented on the post. But of all the people that actually commented, this one young Nigerian Ridwan, he said, hey, man, check out my 30-second, show intro for the show. I think, you should be a part of this. And I kid you not, like he showed me this little clip that he posted on Twitter, or X, as it's now called. And literally, in a matter of, I guess, a couple months since he posted it, he had over 3,000 plays on there. Now, granted, this is before he even got the opportunity to get this show made into a pilot for Cartoon Network Africa. So I was just like, I see this animation, and it's so well done for somebody that did it on their own. I was like, I gotta be a part of it. And to tell a long story short, so after months of befriending him and collaborating with him, he started getting opportunities for these different contests for the African Animation Network out there, which is like an organization for African, cartoonists or or animators. And lo and behold, he made like the top three, people who actually got their project to be pushed. Some of them were for cartoon. One of them was for Cartoon Network. Another one was for a show on Netflix, and I'm blanking on the name, but I'm sure your audience can research it. And then one other person, their show got put on a different network. But I will say is, again, for everyone, no matter if you're a voice actor or you're in film or whatever it is, if you do not network, you will never get the chance to do other projects. And especially on the rare chance, like for me, your project that you are collaborating on gets an opportunity for Cartoon Network. And I would have never expected that, neither would the animator, but because we developed such a good business friendship, it led to that. But I mean, as far as like the overall experience being a part of it, it took about 5 years of development for this show. And granted, it only got to, at least at the moment, a pilot series, which means basically it's just to show, hey, here's what the show is. Do other networks want to put it on, or other production studios want to take it on to do a full-length series? And so it took 5 years just to lead to a pilot series. But the journey to get there was interesting enough. It is because, when you do a cartoon show for any network, you have to go through so many loopholes. You have to go through, things for funding. You have to go through, casting decisions. You have to go through like waiting for the animation to be done and storyboarding to be done. And so animation looks easy when you watch it on your phone and all that. But when you actually have to go through the process of developing it and waiting for it to actually come out into the world, it takes a long time. And a lot of people that want this career sooner than later don't realize that you're going to have to be waiting. Like the fact that I had to wait about 5 years to actually, to record and then actually to get to see it out there. Not many people want to do that. And some other shows, like for example, I always bring up the example, the Cartoon Network show, or I think it's Cartoon Network, or is it Fox? Bob's Burgers. If you look at interviews, they say it took 10 years of ups and downs before it finally got to be one of the top like adult animated cartoons out there. But those people didn't give up on the project. But one thing that they had to do was they had to be patient. And so, when it got to a point where I finally, and what was it like? It was in summer of 2022, I believe. Around summer 2022, I literally, got into my booth right here. I got to record my lines, which in this case for this show, I played some of the voices of the henchman of the villain of the pilot series, which was pretty fun. It wasn't a lot of lines. It was like about 8 or 10 lines for two different, for a couple different henchmen in 2 different episodes. But I was spending about maybe about an hour or less in this booth actually that you're seeing here behind me. And then literally after that, it took a year before that they took those voice recordings and the animation. And then in July of 2023, it then came out on African television networks. Unfortunately, because it was only on African television networks, it didn't get to debut on our TV networks here in the United States. But luckily, at some point, I think I was like 3 months after it debuted on their TV networks, I was given like the full-length pilot. And then I edited together my own like full-length feature of what I did. And then I posted onto my YouTube channels, YouTube channel for @Adam Bullock VL. And you can see either a shortened clip version, which has just my parts in it, or you can see the full-length episodes that I'm featured in on those YouTube channels. And that's, at this point, amongst other little social media posts about it, that's the only way you can see it. But again, networking is important, developing friendships is important, and patience is important.
Awesome. Awesome. I love that. I love hearing collaboration. I love hearing that it's successful. And yes, patience. When it comes down to animation, remember, all the listeners out there, patience, be patient. All right. So now let's talk about yourself. You actually host a podcast yourself, and it's called Just Say Hello. How did you come up with the concept for that podcast, and where are you guys at with it?
Sure. Okay, yeah. So Just Say Hello is basically like, it's almost like any other, interview-based podcast you do hear out there, like your own. But in this case, it features mostly it's very focused on, people who are voice actors, maybe they're animators or production studios for animation. But also too, I'm starting to feature more, especially this season for my own season 3. I'm starting to feature more character actors that maybe not, but they may not necessarily be voice actors, but because I love characters so much and that's so much of my passion, I feature people that have done character work of some sort. And so like it, but I think the one special thing about my podcast, other than the guests and the information that they share, is that with voice actor guests, especially if they are so apt to, we actually do 2 improvised comedic scenes on each episode, to where later, once we record the episode, we actually have a audio engineer go in and actually edit together, sound effects, music, and a bunch of different stuff to make it come to life. It almost sounds like when you actually listen to the podcast, even though you can't see it visually, it sounds like you're listening to a cartoon, but you're not. So that's like one special thing about Just Say Hello. I mean, because the title itself is like, if you listen to the actual intro music and whatnot, it features a lot. It features a lot of phone call ringing. It goes like, ring, hello. It just because it's an interview, like phone calls are one-to-one communication, so that's typically what people do. Obviously, people aren't talking like this on the phone. These have bricks in their hand, but you get what I think everyone gets what I mean. So it's a communication. So just that's what a podcast is. It's a dialogue between 2 people. And sometimes I do feature more than one voiceover guest at times. But yeah, it's a fun little thing that I'm developing for my production studio that I'm actually now pushing to develop more for podcasting and actually animated related things. Because like I said, with all the networking that I'm doing and so forth, I'm developing different friend groups with people that are in animation or they're audio engineers, people that are very talented. And because I developed such a strong friendship with them, I am having meetings every so often each month with all these people. I'll just say, without saying a lot of stuff, we're developing new things, like I said, new animation projects, which, like I said, takes a long time. So not a lot to reveal right now. But I mean, I'm also wanting to produce more different podcasts. So I would say right now, my studio for Productions is the main title of the production company. We're focusing on not only animation, but podcasts. So right now, Just Say Hello is the main production that's going on consistently. I have like 2 other podcasts I'm in the brainstorming stages right now of developing to just, bring in more revenue just for my studio, but also to also branch off and to network with more people. Because like I said, when you start networking with other people and people that start getting to know you, you never know. Down the line, they may come up with an opportunity that may be financially beneficial or interesting that happened because you invited them onto your show. So that's pretty much like the podcasting in general. But yeah, it's been a fun experience. It's been educational, and I just look forward to all the new things that we're going to be starting soon with my production company.
Awesome, awesome. And just in case anyone missed it, this is your chance. Plug in your connections. Where can people listen to your podcast, and where can they watch some of the episodes of Garbage Boy and Trash Can?
Sure. So I'm sure this will be in your show notes, but so best way to like look up anything I do is, well, number one, go to my website, which is www.adambullockvo.com. Or you can go up on most social media channels, including YouTube, look at Adam Bullock VO, all one word. And like as far as Garbage and Trash Can, I mean, their clips are everywhere on the social media channels. But like I said, if you want to view the full clip of that, go onto YouTube and look there and just find my profile and you can watch it there. But yeah, I mean, just look out because you never know what happens next.
Awesome, awesome. Go check that out, everyone. All right, so now we're gonna talk about you were at the Phoenix Animation Expo. How was that experience for you?
Well, it was an amazing experience. And so, yeah, the Phoenix Animation Expo is actually Arizona's very first animator conference in all of Arizona. Because right now in all of the United States, there's only maybe like 3 or 4 other major animation conferences, or you could call them like animation Comic Cons, sort of, where it features a lot of animators from all across the industry, where they get to come to network, they get education, they may have like a vendor hall where they're advertising their production company or products. So it's like it's a small little animation conference that just started the last year, but I was a part of it to help them on the volunteer side, to help behind the scenes and make sure everything was running smoothly. But also too, because of networking, the guy who runs the whole conference is named Richie Jimenez, who not only operates the Phoenix Animation Expo, but he also runs the Phoenix Animation Meetup Group, where basically at least once a month on a Saturday, they meet up at a local location where with a bunch of other young and upcoming animators, and they get to have like little discussion groups. They get to get educated on different aspects of the animation industry, and the number one thing again is networking. And so that was like part one of the things I was also helping with too. But I mean, with the Phoenix Animation Expo, the whole goal of it is to connect people with other like-minded people, because these days with the Hollywood industry, it's changing so much to where a lot of mainstream animation stuff is not being either greenlit or it's not happening at all. I mean, there's been so many changes that, more independent animation studios are coming from the groundwork, that, the way a lot of these things start is it happens at conferences like the Phoenix Animation Expo, because it's like you might bump into a couple of people that are trying to start their own team, and then you get pulled in to be a part of it, and they all build something together. Or you might join something that already exists, and you start getting opportunities to develop really cool animation projects. And so that is, like I said, the amazing thing about the Animation Expo. I mean, I know it's developing for another round 2 of the expo. Don't know when that's going to come out, but I know it's going to be probably pretty soon. But yeah, if anybody's interested in like flying out to Arizona, definitely look up the Phoenix Animation Expo online on Google, and you will get right to it.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, everyone. That was our episode today of Inside Plug. Adam, thank you again for joining us and sharing your journey. This was an awesome experience, and I look forward to seeing more of your work and hearing more of your voices in animations, even in film or TV projects, or even in theater. Thank you
Oh,
again.
no, thank you again. And that's all, folks. Yeah.
All right, everyone. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to check out some of our previous episodes, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Inside Plug with 2 Gs. We're on every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Remember, stay inspired and keep creating. Inside Plug, signing out.